Next question. In my opinion, this boy is very honest and can be depended. In my opinion, this boy is very honest and can be depended. Yeah, we do have a separate list about, I think, about 500 collocations which are compiled and available for you to go through in a PDF format. Right? Just go to vocabulary section. You should be able to find that. I think we have idioms and phrases list. There's a collocation list as well. So please go through that. I just gave you a handful of it. There's some 500 there for you to go through. 250 to 500, I think. So what error do you think? What is the error you think is there in this? In my opinion, this boy is very honest and can be depended. What? So you're saying C, part C. What do we have to do in part C? Something is missing, right? So what should we add in order to make this sentence complete? We just have to add depended upon, which means there's something missing, right? This category is missing prepositions, right? Something is depended upon, right? In my opinion, this boy is very honest and I can depend on this guy, right? That's what the context is saying. Because he is honest, I can depend on him, right? So he can be depended upon. In terms of sentence construction, it's coming towards the end, right? I can't say depended on, depended upon. Yeah. So in my opinion, this boy is very honest and can be depended upon. So it's a missing preposition. That's what the error is about. Yeah. Are you with me? Yeah. So let's move on. So in terms of, just so you know, right, there's not much of a difference in meaning when it comes to depend on and depend upon. Okay. Pretty much the same meaning. I think upon is more formal, right? Like, I mean, where would we use it? Once upon a time, right? In statements like that, right? Or upon receiving, a call, he took action, right? In a very formal context is where you will see upon used, but in terms of sentence construction, right? This is preferred. Question. As the party was going, we noticed Mr. Ray fall back in his chair, gasping for breath. Okay. So as the party was going, we noticed Mr. Ray fall back in his chair and gasping for breath. So I'm waiting for your response. Where do you think the error is? Again, as you read the sentence, you should be able to identify that there's something wrong in this part, right? Something sounds funny or something sounds awkward or something is missing. Which part is that? On to be added after. Yes, right? So as the party was going on, so again, this is an error pertaining to a missing preposition. As the party was going on, we noticed Mr. Ray fall back in his chair, gasping for breath. So something was happening, and then they saw another event happening. Not event, as in an accident or a mishap. For nearly half a century, he lived in that village, sharing the joys and sorrows of the people there. But later, he left the village and has not been heard of since. Yeah, so look at the question and then you tell me. For nearly half a century, he lived in that village, sharing the joys and sorrows of the people there, but later he left the village and has not been heard of since. Where do you think the error is? Yeah, I think a lot of us panic when we look at long, complicated sentences, right? We somehow feel there could be a possibility of, multiple errors, or the tendency is to skip. But as long as we understand meaning, right, you can break it down. Look at part A. It says, for nearly half a century, he lived in that village. Okay, so that makes complete sense, right? 50 years. He lived in that village, sharing the joys and sorrows of the people there. So we're talking about a large mass of a large number, so joys and sorrows of each and every one of them, so that makes sense in terms of noun number. But later he left the village and has not been heard. So we see the tense change, right? Present perfect tense, and has not been heard, which means from the time that he left, right, he has not been heard of since. The only thing that's missing here is since then. Right? I need another word to complete meaning. Since when? From the time he left that village. right? So that brings in completion of meaning. I have not heard of this at all, right? Somebody maybe shares with you a particular concept or a particular principle, or if they say, let's say for example, these weird superstitions that people believe in. For example, if by mistake, if you what do I say, hit someone's head. I think they took it in a movie as well. I think it's a Telugu movie. So if you hit somebody by mistake on the head, you need to hit them back, otherwise horns will grow, right? So when somebody is sharing something like that, and if you've never heard of that, how do you say it? I've never heard of such thing. That is weird, right? That just doesn't make sense. So I've never heard of is a collocation. It's a construction as it is. So, and there's nothing wrong in that. So has not been heard of is, I don't want you to look at of since. The expression is I have not heard of such thing, right? So the collocation is not of since. The collocation is heard of, right? That is your collocation. So don't get confused. You are confused because you're saying, hey, how can of come before since? That's not. The collocation is heard of. You have either heard of it, or for the same example that I gave, you can come back and say, yes, I've heard people, I've heard of people say that. I don't know how true it is, but I've heard of people say that, right? So heard of is the collocation, not of since. And here we just need to add then, which brings in the meaning of since when? Since the time he left the village. Right? So the error is no doubt in part C, but it's not what you said. You don't have to change of or remove of. You just have to add then after since. Yeah. So at least in the last three example sentences, what we've looked at, there is something missing, right? And always remember, when you remove a preposition from a sentence, the meaning is incomplete, right? It sounds awkward. Something is funny, something is wrong. Even if you are not able to narrow down or identify that, oh, okay, this is the preposition that is missing. But when you read the sentence, you should be able to identify that this part, there's something wrong with this part. Why? Because it does not complete meaning. So prepositions, the function of a preposition is to always complete meaning. Right? It's like saying, this pen is the table. That doesn't make sense, right? How can I say this pen is the table? What is missing? On is missing, right? This pen is on the table. That makes sense where I'm talking about the location of the pen, right? So if I remove a preposition, the meaning is just awkward, it's incomplete, it's illogical. He is standing, me. He is standing me, what? He is standing beside me, right? I need that preposition to complete meaning. There is water, the cup. There is water, what? Something is missing. There is water in the cup, right? So we need to keep this in mind. So some of the things so far we've looked at is, let's do a quick recap before we move to the next question, right? We've looked at unnecessary prepositions or adverbs. We've looked at incorrect prepositions where I'm saying, hey, I need to be familiar with as many collocations as possible, because if I know that this word is associated with this preposition, I'm able to identify that this preposition is incorrect, right? And the third one is missing prepositions, which are not completing the meaning of the sentence. Yeah. So when it comes to prepositions, these are the three things that you need to look for. What's missing? What's unnecessary? What is incorrect? Okay.